Hi, welcome to English 3, Quest 1, Module 2, Analysis of Paired Genres, Literary Nonfiction and Fiction. Today we're going to work with the SOAPSTone acronym so that you'll be able to make complex inferences based on a comparison and also by contrasting paired genres. Let's take a look at the directions. Use the questions below to examine each of the elements using both texts to respond to the prompt below. So what I'm going to do is a think aloud modeling how to answer the questions for the first selection that was read. The first selection is One Soldier's Story, a memoir by Bob Dole. It's from chapter 1 of his book. So let's go ahead and look at the first question. What is he or she, the speaker, trying to portray? Well, if we think about what we've read, we know that the overall topic is war. So the speaker might be trying to talk about maybe the impact on war. So I'm going to go ahead and type it. The speaker conveys his ideas about how war impacts the lives of those serving and their loved ones. So it not only impacts the people who fight in the war, it impacts their loved ones. I'll go out on a limb and say it impacts the country as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little correction and add citizens of the country. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to explore is the occasion. And the occasion is the situation or the event that stands out. So when we look at One Soldier's Story, we know that, again, we're talking about war, but what is the specific occasion in the excerpt we read? Well, we know that in the beginning, we're introduced to a young soldier who essentially was in a hospital because of his war injuries. So the occasion is, change that, the situation that stands out is a young soldier who is hospitalized because of his injuries. And that stands out because Bob Dole is actually able to make a connection to that experience, as he too had been hospitalized in a similar situation because of his war injuries. Okay. So now we can take a look at the next question, which relates to audience. The audience is essentially referring to the people who are likely to read the text. And of course, in this case, that's us. We are the audience. But you can probably rest assured that it wasn't written just for high school students. There was a larger audience. And so let's think about that. When you're writing about war, who might want to read an entire book about what war does or how it impacts people? Well, probably veterans would be interested in reading about a soldier's story. People who have to make decisions about war, such as politicians and those who vote for those politicians, so citizens in the country, and even people who are potential candidates for going into the war. So let's verbalize that here. The intended audience is likely and we'll say comprised of, because there's more than one. We listed several. And we said constituents, politicians, potential service people, service men and women, and that looks like it. That looks like it could probably be it. So I'm going to go ahead and correct my grammar there by adding and we'll look at the next question. The next question is the purpose. What is the purpose of this actual piece? Why did Bob Dole decide to record his story about being a soldier in a book? Well, I'll say Dole's purpose. I'm going to say is to explore the impact of war on people. So one of Dole's purposes is to explore it's very important to think about the consequences of decisions that you make. So it gives him credibility to explore the negative consequences, not just some of the positive results of war. Obviously, it's important to protect the country, but if you just talk about the positives and you ignore the negatives, then people tend not to trust you. So he begins by showing war's impact, but then he also looks to inform the audience. One of his purposes is to inform the audience how war's lessons, if you will, lessons that are learned from war, how they're priceless, and they teach the soldiers and those involved a lot about life. So I'm going to say, and how its lessons are priceless for those involved. Okay, so let's take a look at the next question, which is the subject. What is the major issue at large? What's the exigence? Why did he even bother talking about war? Surely there are other things in his life that he could have written about, such as marriage or love or raising children, but he decided to write about war because there's a major issue at large. Well, one of the things is our country disfavors war. So the major issue at large is that our country disfavors war, but veterans, politicians, and others who support war feel like us citizens would make different decisions and support war if we knew more about the benefits, not just the ravages of war. So veterans who support war feel that we are generally misinformed. So if we learned about the positive aspects, we would be more supportive. And when I say we, I mean us, in terms of the people who are eligible to vote, those people who make decisions about war and monies to go to war, and they support those politicians who make those decisions. Okay. And I'm going to make the appropriate corrections, and we'll go ahead and look at the next question. And it's our final question. Our final question is, what is the subject and how does the author feel about the subject? Well, as we said before, the subject is essentially war. And the author feels more character shaping comes from war than the negative results. So the subject is war, and the author, typed the wrong word, feels war has negative results at times, but overall it's a major factor in shaping lives and people. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you to pause so that you can soapstone the second piece, Ambush by Tim O'Brien. Welcome back. Now that you soapstone Ambush by Tim O'Brien, let's take a look at the prompt that you're going to respond to. The prompt that you're being asked to discuss is how point of view, or who's telling the story, shapes both the author's and the character's experiences with war. So specifically, using these two texts, how does point of view shape the author and the character's experiences with war? When you're done, please save your document to submit to your teacher. Thank you.